Welcome to the NanoCap podcast. I'm your host, Will Tjernlund, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of NanoCap companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of NanoCap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. This week we have Dr. Bill Williams, the President and CEO of BriaCell, stock ticker BCTX. BriaCell is a clinical stage biotech immunotherapy company advancing novel approaches to fight cancer and improve patients' lives. Bill, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
So I was looking through your LinkedIn, as I do with all my guests, and I noticed that you were in academia for about 20 years there. What made you want to jump from kind of academia and working in the lab to kind of your first actual kind of business venture and get out of the lab?
Yeah, so when I was at, especially at the University of Pennsylvania, I saw a lot of people who would come up with inventions and then they jump out into industry and they would form these little companies and do really good science, but they had no idea how to develop a drug. And so many of them failed because of that. Some of them got bought out by other people and the technology would fizzle away. And I didn't want to have that happen. So I decided that, as I was doing my research at University of Pennsylvania, there were a number of things that we were doing that could be translated into the clinic. And in fact, I did take one of the first nucleic acid vaccines into the clinic way back in the day. It was a DNA vaccine for cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. And that experience encouraged me, but I really wanted to kind of learn how to think inside the box, if you know what I mean, about drug development. So I went to SmithKline Beecham, which became GlaxoSmithKline, worked in clinical pharmacology and experimental medicine, kind of learned the ropes, went to Insight Corporation, VP Exploratory Development, put their blockbuster Jakafi into the clinic in the oncology space, worked on it through post-approval, and then eventually did what I wanted to do in the first place, which was to run a small biotech. And that's what I've been doing at BriaCell for the past 10 years.
And what did you find refreshing about jumping into the commercial side of things? And what was one of the things that you're like, man, this would be a day where I wish I was back in the lab back at Penn?
Yeah, so I think the refreshing thing is that you knew what you were doing was going to directly affect patients. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If we're not making patients better, what are we doing? That's the goal at the end of the day. So, clearly that part of it was really good. What was frustrating for me at first was working on at a team type of level within teams that functioned as teams. In academia, people may not realize this, but you hear of a place like the University of Pennsylvania or Harvard or some of these other big institutions, and you think, oh, there's some kind of coordinated research going on there. No, it's like you have hundreds of different investigators, each doing their own thing, each trying to get their own funding. There's some famous stories out of some institutions about investigators who have labs literally next to each other, working on the same thing. And then when one of them finally cracked it, the other lab found out when it was published, which is usually 6 months or a year after it happens. So they're really not working together the way that you would expect. So from one level, it was great to work with a team and to have all these different expertises come together in a project. But on the other hand, it was a little bit frustrating because I was used to just making the decision and that's what you would do. But that's not the way it works in industry. It's much more important to move together as a team as opposed to just kind of getting the job done, regardless of whose responsibility it is. So it took me a little time to learn that. I learned it very well at GlaxoSmithKline, continued to apply it in Insight, and now at BriaCell, I think to me, it's like the best of both worlds because I can set the tone for what we're doing, but there's this great team that's pushing everything forward. So that's kind of been the evolution.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of just an aside, I hear about that often, and I hear about different breakthroughs where someone from the biology department finally talks to someone in the archaeology department, and you figure out how much of their stuff kind of cross, and you almost need to have like a polymath on staff at these universities asking everyone what they're up to and be like, hey, do you know they're working on gravity over in the physics department too, and kind of thing, and connect these dots because you hear about this way too much.
Yeah. Well, the tech transfer departments should be doing that at the big institutions, but it's just not easy to do. That's all I can tell you. The mindset in academia is very much, I have to do my work and get my stuff published so I can have my name out there, and that's going to be my career, and that's how I get tenure and all those kinds of things. So it's a little bit more self-focused, whereas in industry, it's a complete team effort because a synthetic organic chemist and a medicinal chemist don't even do the same thing, even though they're both chemists. And of course, they're not going to do the statistics and the analysis and the clinical trials. It's really, you need a number of different expertises to be put to bear to develop a drug that's going to get into the clinic and hopefully make patients' lives better.
So, yeah, I want to fast forward a little bit in your timeline to you being the editor-in-chief of the Catholic Medical Association newsletter. And you looking at all these different kind of breakthroughs and being one of the first people to see these different studies for the first time. And with you seeing all these different things over your years, what about BriaCell just got you so excited? And to the point of, in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you and another person on the team, Jamieson, yourselves just put $6 million into this combined. And so, I just would, what kind of studies did you read where you're like, how much do I have in my checking account, and how do I dedicate my whole life to this moving forward? Tell me more about that kind of epiphany and date.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I was at Insight Corporation, when I came into the company, their stock was trading around $5 or $6. They had a late phase asset called Reverset in phase 3. It's a reverse transcriptase inhibitor for HIV infection. And unfortunately, it wasn't very safe. So it failed. Their stock went down to $2. I did actually manage to get a bunch of options at that price, which was very, very fortunate on my part. And when I left the company, the stock was at 130. And so that kind of experience really, obviously can motivate you. I also had a little bit of cash at that point. So I said, look, I want to use this in a way that is going to be both good for people and fun to do. And when the BriaCell opportunity came along and I saw their early data, it looked so promising, and it looked like something that could be elaborated on and made even better. I decided that this was going to be the place where I would make my contribution. And in the process of doing that, BriaCell is a Canadian-based company, so I would go on road trips and talk to different investors when we were still traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange before we uplisted to NASDAQ. And I met a gentleman named Jamieson Bondarenko, who was much more on the economic side, on the corporate side. So he was very interested in BriaCell because he saw that what I had done, putting money into it. So he decided to put a bunch of money into it. And then he decided to get more involved, and eventually he's now our chairman of the board. So between him and I, we did put in over $6 million in the early phases of development of BriaCell to move things along to the point where they are now. I mean, obviously, $6 million wasn't all we needed. This is drug development. It is a very expensive proposition, but we were so excited about the results we were seeing. We committed to it in a big way. Neither of us is billionaires or even 100 millionaires or even 10 millionaires, but we thought this would be a very productive use of our capital. We believed in the assets that we were developing. And so we jumped in with both feet.
Yeah, I know. I've interviewed a ton of biotech companies. A ton of them have some skin in the game, but not to the scale you do, which is really a confidence booster because, yeah, if you're not willing to back your own project, who is kind of thing. Whenever I see these like billionaires raise like a seed fund, it's always like, just do it yourself if you actually care. And so, no, it's cool to see you have some skin in the game. So we danced around it a bit, but Bill, in your own words, what is BriaCell?
So BriaCell is a clinical stage immuno-oncology company developing an entirely new approach to cancer immunotherapy. We use a whole cell approach. We take cancer cells and we genetically engineer them so that they can become potent stimulators of the immune system. And that activated immune system can then recognize the patient's own cancer and attack it. And that's our whole strategy, is to marshal the patient's own immune system. But unlike other immunotherapies that are out there, which generally work on the whole immune system by taking the foot off the brakes, such as checkpoint inhibitors like Keytruda and Opdivo and Tecentriq, etc., our approach is very targeted. It's precision oncology, and that's what we do. We generate that potent immune response against the cancer, and that way the patient's own immune system can now attack the cancer, get rid of it, and then continue to work to keep it down once it's down. That's the idea.
And so I read that you all were fast-tracked by the FDA from phase 2A to 3. Is that for a specific type of cancer? Is it kind of cover all cancers? Or tell me a little bit more about the specific use case.
Yeah, so our lead asset is Bria-IMT, and it's a breast cancer cell line that's been genetically modified to make it a potent immune stimulator. Bria-IMT is for breast cancer, and we are treating very late-stage breast cancer patients. These are patients who, on the average, have been on 6 prior therapies, and their disease has progressed in spite of that. So these are extremely late-stage patients. They have very few options left. And the last thing you want to do in that scenario is treat them with chemotherapy or something that's going to make them sick. What you'd rather do is treat them with something with low side effect profile that's going to prolong their lives. And that's what our goal is with Bria-IMT, is to greatly positively impact the lives of these late-stage breast cancer patients who really run out of other options. But it is specifically for breast cancer.
And so as you're going through these trials, do you have any trouble finding people in your specific group where you have to find someone in a very specific situation? Or is breast cancer such a prevalent form of cancer that there's always someone in dire need?
Yeah, so metastatic breast cancer is responsible for over 40,000 deaths every year just in the U.S., without even going outside of the U.S. So it's a very, very prevalent disease. There's, I think, about 180,000 new cases every year. 1 in 7 women will develop breast cancer during some point in their lives. So it's very, very prevalent. Fortunately, if it's caught early, it's very treatable, curable in many cases. However, many patients present with metastatic disease already, in which case kind of the horse is out of the barn. And then other patients, even though they may respond early on, it comes back. And those are the patients that then end up going on various different lines of therapy. And again, we're getting them after everything else has stopped working. So, there are a lot of patients out there. The late stage patients are looking for some option that they can go to that's not going to make them sick as a dog and is going to have some positive effect. And so that's what we're targeting. But the patients are out there. They are out there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is more to extend the lifespan of someone who is still trying to fight through cancer. This does not cure the cancer itself or anything. This is more of an additive on top to add an extra 6 months maybe of livable, quality life.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. Cancer is very, very difficult to treat when it gets to late stage, because what happens is that the cancer cells which arose in the first place because of mutations, continue to mutate. And so when you get to late stage cancer, you're not treating one type of cancer cell. You're treating hundreds or maybe even thousands of different types of cancer cells. And even though you may kill off 99% of them, that 1% is then going to grow back. And it makes it a very, very difficult scenario. In that setting, these patients who have run out of other options typically have a very short life expectancy in the order of 6 to 10 months. And we've shown with our phase 2 study that this can be 13 to 16 months. So we think that we can translate that into our phase 3 study and prolong the lives of these patients compared to the other therapies that are out there.
So say the phase 3 study goes through, everything goes as planned. What's the plan for distribution? Are you looking for a larger company to license this out to? Are you looking to license the patent out to someone? Do you already have a partner in mind? Do you want to sell it yourself and manufacture it yourself? What makes most sense for you all?
Yeah, so any of those things are possible. And we have the expertise internally to go ahead and develop a commercial team to market it on our own. But we also have been in conversation with multiple big pharmas that are kind of waiting on the phase 3 results to see how it's going to turn out, who could potentially partner with us. We could do the rent the sales force type of approach that many biotech companies do once they get an approval. And then we could continue to partner with that company, whatever it turns out to be. And it's really any of the above. It just depends on what makes sense when we get there. We're not going to get to the point where we have a phase 3 approval where we can start selling our therapy and give it away. We need to make sure we have a good deal. We put in a lot of work on this, and we want to make sure that the company is well funded going forward, because as excited as I am about Bria-IMT, I'm even more excited about our pipeline, and I want to make sure it gets developed.
So that was going to be my next question. So thanks for teaming me up, Bill. So Bria-IMT is your main kind of spearhead, your flagship product, but every single biotech company I've ever talked to has a couple more coals in the fire, right? Pokers in the fire, trying to make sure that they have something more to their story, right? To say that, hey, there's more beyond just this. But then also it just turns out that a lot of the breakthroughs have multiple different applications, right? And so, yeah, tell me what you got going on besides Bria-IMT.
One of the things we realized early on when we were treating patients with Bria-IMT is that it worked best in patients who matched at what's called the HLA type. Now, HLA molecules are the ones that start immune responses. Basically, what they do is they grab antigens, and antigen is anything that your immune system recognizes. They grab them, and then they present them to T cells that recognize that antigen in the context of that HLA molecule. And that's how your T cells and your immune system gets activated in the first place. The thing about HLA molecules is that they're polymorphic. So they're different in different people, but they're shared by some people. It's like eye color. Some people have the same eye color. Some people have different eye color. So you could share an HLA type with our cell line or have a different HLA type.
So would you say similar to like blood type?
Yes, it's
okay.
The same idea as blood type. It's used widely in tissue transplantation. When you hear about somebody getting a kidney transplant, they match the patient to the kidney. Well, that's because they're matching their HLA type. And there's lots of different HLA molecules. There's like a dozen different ones that we have in our body. So, matching is not going to be 100% even for a good transplant recipient. But we noticed that when there's a couple of matches at the HLA type, that we have better clinical benefit in our early stage patients. So the first thing we did is figured out how to genetically engineer our cells to match more patients. And we figured out that with 15 different HLA types, we can match 99% of the population, at least at one HLA type, and 90% at two HLA types. And that's what we call Bria-OTS, which is off-the-shelf OTS, but also personalized. So it's a personalized off-the-shelf approach. And that's what we call our second generation of our cell therapy platform. And that's already been in the clinic with good, promising early results. In fact, our very first patient came in. She matched the cell line at 2 different HLA types or alleles. And after 4 inoculations with the cells, which are given every 2 weeks into the skin of the upper back and the thighs, that's our usual method of delivery. She had a lung metastasis, breast cancer nodule in the lung that completely disappeared. And she stayed on the study for a year, just getting these cell inoculations once a month. So it shows the power of this personalized matching technology in a late stage patient, that you're getting resolution of this lung metastasis, and then the patient stays on the study for a whole year. But we weren't satisfied with just matching at the HLA type. We wanted to actually take our cells and make them even more potent. And one of the early observations we had is that Bria-IMT is able to directly activate T cells. Now, most vaccines go through a pathway where the antigens are delivered to the system. They're taken up by cells called dendritic cells. The dendritic cells then put them in the HLA molecules and use them to stimulate T cells. But we saw that our cells could directly stimulate the T cells. So we thought we would capitalize on that by adding what are called co-stimulatory molecules and additional cytokines to basically take these cancer cells and make them like dendritic cells that are already activated so that they could directly activate the immune system. And that's what we call Bria-OTS Plus. And we recently announced that technology is now ready to go into the clinic. We submitted our investigational new drug application to the FDA for what we call Bria Breast Plus. That's the breast cancer version. And they agreed that we could go ahead and start treating patients. And we're in the early stages of getting that going. And then we're going to be extending that to other types of cancer. Prostate cancer, we have finished manufacturing our clinical supplies for the prostate cancer version. So that's in the works. And then we're going to get into lung cancer, melanoma, ovarian cancer, and we have a very long laundry list of cancers that we want to attack with this technology.
Well, that's very exciting, super exciting results. As we wrap up here, Bill, you kind of answered a little bit there, but what gets you out of bed in the morning? What gets you excited about BriaCell, and this is what you want to spend your time doing?
Yeah, so of course our phase 3 study, if we get a positive readout, it's going to be great for patients. It'll be great for the company, for our investors. It's going to be fantastic. But even more exciting to me is this platform technology, because I believe that if this works the way we think it can work, where you get these simple intradermal inoculations that can be done in a doctor's office, or perhaps even by a visiting nurse coming to your home with these immunotherapy cell lines. And that can induce this potent immune response to attack the cancer. That could be transformational for the whole field of oncology, bringing it to a new level of both safety and efficacy with a personalized approach that's off the shelf. So you have the convenience of something that's off the shelf, can be shipped overnight to the clinic or shipped overnight even to somebody's home, can be administered by simple intradermal inoculations, which are not very painful, can induce this potent immune response. That's what really gets me out of bed, because I want to see this through. I want to see how this is going to work in our patients, see how it can be extended, how it can be combined with other therapies, and just continue to push this technology forward. Because as I'm sure you've experienced, and I'm sure almost everybody in your, or perhaps everybody in your listening audience has experienced, cancer can be devastating. We've all lost people to this horrible disease. And so we really want to get a chance to kind of kick it in the teeth with this personalized off-the-shelf approach. And that's what gets me out of bed. That's what motivates me every morning to get up and get to work.
Awesome answer, Bill. If people want to learn a little bit more about BriaCell and what you all are up to, where should I send my audience?
So we have our website. Our ticker symbol is BCTX on the NASDAQ. And so you can go to our BriaCell, just type BriaCell into your browser, and it'll bring you to our website. We have all of our prior press releases, all of our scientific information is up there. There's just a wealth of information. We have some explanatory videos and whatnot of how our technology works. So go to our website, plumb the depths of it, and you can see, what we're working on, where we are, and where we're going with this.
And there's a really good 40-minute video from Renmark Financial Communications on YouTube where Bill goes into a lot more detail of what the drug does and everything. So Bill, thank you so much for your time today. And for those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement therefore by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast express disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information